In this video, I will discuss the basics of sources and references in rootsTrust. First, let's distinguish between a source and a reference. You could cite the Encyclopedia Britannica as a source, and your reference or source citation would name the source and specify the volume and page where you found your information. One of the principles of good database design is to avoid storing the same data more than once. Since your rootsTrust data is stored in a database, we separate the source and the references to the source. Thus, you could have multiple references to the Encyclopedia Britannica that all share the same source record, thus avoiding duplication of data. The source record in the database would contain the title, author, and publication details, while the reference record contains only the volume and page numbers. rootsTrust version 1 only supports the simple source references as defined in the GEDCOM specification. As in the Encyclopedia Britannica example, such a source can have title, author, and publication fields. A reference only has a location field. We refer to these source references as legacy structures. While this format is easy to use, not all sources have an author, a title, or have been published. For example, a gravestone inscription or a family tradition have none of those legacy properties. In addition, this simple format is unacceptable for citations intended to be used in professional genealogical publications. Let's look at an example of a legacy source reference in rootsTrust that is a little closer to what a typical genealogist would create as compared to the Encyclopedia Britannica. Here we have a simple reference to the 1900 U.S. Federal Census. No published data is specified simply because the person who created this record didn't know what to put in that field. The location field in the reference portion of this screen contains a jumble of data simply because there's only one field to describe this thing. So a census source already strains the simple source structure. While it defines a title, the author and publication properties start to become somewhat fuzzy. If someone wanted to verify this reference, where would they start? That could be difficult since the reference does not identify when, where, or how the source data was collected, or whether the source was derived from a different source. Looking at the reference portion, the data in the location field is relatively complete, but perhaps not very transparent, since the individual components are not labeled. Now let's look at, close this. Now let's look at a template-based source reference for the same event. Like the legacy source reference I previously displayed, this one includes all fields required to identify the target family within the census record, but here the individual data components are unambiguously labeled, such as jurisdiction and civil division, page ID, dwelling number, and so forth. It also identifies the website from which the data was accessed, the date accessed, and that the data was derived from a family history library microfilm that was a copy of the original microfilm T623 produced in 1972 by the National Archives and Records Administration in Washington, D.C. Unlike its legacy counterpart, this source citation leaves no question unanswered. Now, if I display the Citations tab, and select the Generate Citations command from the menu, rootsTrust generates full and abbreviated citations for this particular event. These citations are constructed following the rules established in Evidence Explained, a book by Elizabeth Shown Mills. These citations will be used in any narrative or curriculum vitae report that you generate from rootsTrust. The full citation is used the first time the source is referenced in the report, and the abbreviated form for all subsequent references in the same report. If you do not like the Mills citation style, you can store citations of your own choosing in this tab, and they will be used during report generation. If there are no citations stored for a given event, and that event is accessed in a report, citations will automatically be generated using the Mills style. By the way, this only applies to template-based source references. There is no automatic citation generation for legacy source references since they do not contain the requisite fields. In conclusion, I would like to point out that if you are perfectly happy using legacy source references, you are free to continue doing so in rootsTrust version 2. You are also free to have a mixture of legacy and template-based source references. It is also possible to convert legacy source references to template-based ones. A separate video demonstrates how to do just that. So, to get a better understanding of this subject, be sure to watch the other source reference videos. Thank you.